Hi, Hoodie Angel Brandon. I was wondering if you could review a game for another console, you stupid Nintendo fanboy. Sincerely, an anonymous fan.
I have fan mail.
Greetings everyone, I'm Hoodie Angel Brandon, and today we're taking a look at one of the few non-Nintendo games I own, Dragon Quest VIII. That's right, Brandon, the Nintendo fanboy, is actually playing a PlayStation game.
Scandalous.
In fact, this game is the only reason I even own a PlayStation. See, way back in the day, I was subscribed to Shonen Jump. For the youngins out there, that was a monthly magazine that featured a collection of popular shonen manga. It had all your typicals, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and so on. But Hikaru no Go was the greatest and you cannot convince me otherwise. Anyways, in addition to the manga, it would occasionally showcase other things, like of course anime, which is already tied at the hip to manga anyway, as well as games. One of the games that they showcased was this one, Dragon Quest VIII. It even came with a free demo disc of the game. But alas, no matter how hard I tried, I could not get that amazing looking game to work. And thus, for my birthday, I did the unthinkable. I asked for a PlayStation 2. So, thanks to this game, I'm a traitor to my homeworld. So that's cool. But was it worth it? Well, we'll just have to find out. Background information. As you may have guessed from the name, Dragon Quest VIII is the 8th main series installment in the Dragon Quest series of games. They're a series of turn-based RPGs published by Square Enix, also known for the Final Fantasy series. In fact, they're a lot more well-known for Final Fantasy, at least outside of Japan. While Dragon Quest did well in Japan, it didn't have the same level of success in the rest of the world. The Dragon Quest line of games are typically designed to be easier for RPG beginners to get into, so things tend to be a bit simpler. With that in mind, being simple isn't bad, as long as you do it well. We'll talk about that later though. Dragon Quest VIII in particular was received pretty well at release, which was in late 2004 for Japan, late 2005 for North America, and early 2006 for the rest of the world. Wow. I actually hadn't realized it, but this game is well over a decade old. But does it still hold up? Was it worth turning my back on Nintendo? Let's take a closer look at the game itself and see if we can answer those questions. Story and characters. Dragon Quest VIII follows the quest of you, the hero. For the purpose of this review, we'll just call him the Gov. You are the retainer to one King Trode, aka this unkingly looking troll here. He and his daughter Medea were cursed when a jester by the name of Dual Magus stole a scepter which was his castle's royal treasure, transforming them into a horse and whatever he's supposed to be. But Dual Magus' magic had an even more disastrous effect on Trode's castle, which was reduced to ruins and overtaken by vines, snaring and cursing all the castle's inhabitants, save the king, the princess, and of course, you. So now you, along with the princess and the cursed king, must set out on a journey to retrieve the scepter and bring Dual Magus to justice. Actually, that's also the subtitle to the game, Dragon Quest VIII, Journey of the Cursed King. Huh. It drops you off a little bit after your quest has already begun. I actually like this. You know your goal, but you're not quite sure how you and your merry band of misfits got there. This adds a little incentive to keep going, to unravel these mysteries. But at the same time, you have enough info to understand the basics of what's going on. Everything gets fleshed out as you play, which of course every story should, but here they found a great balance between building up the mysteries and giving you enough to work with. Unlike a lot of other RPGs, instead of traveling to locations to get crystals and so on, or to activate some cosmic doodad, you're constantly in pursuit of the wretched fiend Dual Magus, searching for clues as to his whereabouts and attempting to unravel the mysteries surrounding him and his plots. It's still a simple plot, yes, but again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's still interesting enough to be engaging, and as you begin to unravel just what Dual Magus is up to, it gets a little more interesting. While the king and the princess are non-combatants, you actually start with one other actual party member, a scary-looking ex-thief by the name of Yengus. He joined you shortly after your quest began, but again, you don't know how or why right away. In addition to Yengus, you'll eventually encounter a few other allies who join you for their own reasons, but all with the common goal of finding and stopping Dulmagus. These characters can be a little one-note and tropey at first glance, Yengus being the kind of dumb big guy, or Troda as a selfish royal. They do have some hidden layers and become more fleshed out both in terms of personality and backstory as the game goes on. While admittedly they aren't the most fleshed out characters in the world, there is still more there than what you see at first glance, and it is a very lovable cast of characters. The game itself has a great sense of humor, and has some good running jokes, but it's well aware of it and not afraid to lean on the fourth wall. Next, before we get into the meat of things, let's quickly go over the presentation. Graphics and audio. This game features a beautiful, cel-shaded style with vibrant colors that make everything really pop. It's really nice to look at, and as far as the characters go, their style may look familiar. That's because the Dragon Quest series has characters designed by Akira Toriyama. For those who don't know, that's the guy who did the famous series Dragon Ball. Whether you're a fan of his work or not, it's hard to deny that he's a pretty big deal, and with good reason. All these characters, while you can see elements in common with other characters of his, still have great, memorable designs that help each stand out from one another. As for the music, all of it is lovely and fits the tone of the mood perfectly. Most of them have a variation that plays during the evening or for dungeons when you're on the final area of that dungeon. My only real complaint is that I wish there was a little more variance in the tracks. No matter how great the music is, listening to the same song while grinding for hours gets old. That's a fairly common problem to a lot of RPGs though, so I wouldn't say it's the biggest deal here. Finally, certain key parts of the game have voice acting, and the voice acting in this game is actually top-notch. All the characters sound just how you'd expect them to. It's absolutely fantastic. There's not much to say about it other than I'm really a fan of it. They even get around the fact you name your hero character by calling him Gov when his name comes up in dialogue. See what I did there? Next, let's get to the meat of the game. Gameplay. As stated earlier, Dragon Quest VIII is a fairly standard RPG, but with some unique twists. As is typical, you'll be traveling from town to buy better gear and find your next goal, as well as exploring various dungeons in search of Dulmagus. What stands between all these is a fairly large overworld. The main thing you'll be looking for in the overworld are dungeon entrances, chests, and monsters to recruit for an optional side quest. While chests have some cool stuff in them, most of your good equipment will be created by you, so exploration isn't the most important thing, though aside from moving between towns and just generally exploring, as is common in RPGs, you'll be spending a lot of time in the overworld battling. The battle system is deceptively simple. Each combatant, both you and the enemy, get an action during the current round, assuming a character isn't dead or under a status condition such as paralysis. In other words, it's a standard turn-based system. Any character can attack any opposing foe regardless of how far away they are on the field, so no worrying about having your swordsman out of range. And of course, turn order is determined by a character's speed stat. As for actual actions each character can take, there's a few to choose from. There are the standard ones like attacking and defending, which does exactly what you'd expect, executing a basic attack based on your strength and current weapon, with multi-hit weapons like boomerangs and whips hitting groups of foes, or having the character take a defensive stance to minimize damage. Next you have items, which let you go into that particular character's inventory. You can then instantly change any equipment they have on hand without using a turn. For example, you can swap out the Gov's sword for a boomerang, or Yengus' shield for one better suited for defending against magical attacks, all before any attacks actually begin. In addition to changing equipment mid-battle, you can also use items in a more traditional sense. Unlike swapping equipment, this will use your character's action for the turn. You have things like status cures and healing herbs, but also more interesting things like items that increase tension, shields that cast a buff on the party when used, staves that can do consistent damage when used, even if used by someone like Yengus who isn't magically inclined, and my personal favorite, cheese. Yes, that's right, cheese. In battle, the Gov can feed his pet mouse, Munchie, various cheeses to get different effects. Plain cheese will let him breathe fire, which, while funny, isn't actually terribly good, hitting foes for minor damage at best. Hey, a fire-breathing mouse is still pretty cool. As you find more cheeses though, whether through exploration or alchemy, you can get much better effects, like a slightly stronger fire breath, or ice breath, or the power to raise the dead. Truly, this is the most formidable of mice. Next you have your abilities and spells. Both of these consume magic points to perform, so you'll likely use them a little less than just attacking. Abilities are obtained by becoming proficient with certain weapons as you level up. More on that later. But to use them, you need to have a specific weapon equipped, which goes hand in hand with swapping items mid-battle. They usually have a nifty perk, like Metal Slash doing more damage on metallic enemies, or Falcon Slash letting you attack twice by reducing the power of each attack a little. As for spells, these don't need anything special like a staff equipped, and have a variety of uses. There are 3 main types of spells. First are your standard healing spells, which restore HP, cure status conditions, and even revive fallen allies. Next are your support spells, which can inflict status on a foe, or buff or debuff your allies or foes' speed, offense, or defense. These are particularly useful in boss battles. Finally is your offensive magic, with things like fire, ice, thunder, and wind. While it sounds exciting, the offensive magic system feels a bit bland. Sure, fire magic works well against ice enemies, but outside of that, I never noticed a huge perk to using one spell type over another outside of visuals. It isn't explained very well, and as usual, the one-hit kill spells don't ever work on anything you'd actually want to use it on, so for the most part, you'll be sticking to magic for healing and buffs. In addition, there are a few spells and abilities that have effects in the overworld, such as letting you fly to whatever city you've been to before, reducing monster encounter rate, and even telling you how many treasures are in a particular area. Finally is the Psych Up option, which relates to the mechanic known as tension. By selecting this, your character gives up their action for the turn to stockpile energy for their next action, whether it be an attack or healing spell, and increases its effectiveness. This is dispelled if you defend as the next action, but you can psych up multiple times in a row before acting. First you gain 5 tension, and then 20. There isn't a huge difference at this level than if you had just attacked twice, but can let you get more HP out of a heal if you don't have enough magic points to cast a better level heal. It's generally not worth it though. But if you keep psyching up, you can reach 50 tension and deal much more damage than normal. But if you keep psyching up beyond 50, there is a chance your character will go Super Saiyan. Toriyama's influence is again shining through here. It's like Goku, but with a sword! This is great for strong bosses with high defense or who can heal themselves. Having multiple party members do this can end the fight all at once. It's really cool as an awesome finishing blow to the big baddies, but it's generally not a great strategy for normal battles. It's one of the new battle mechanics introduced in this game that were kept for later installments. Of course, after a battle you gain experience and can eventually level up, like most RPGs. While you can keep decent pace with monsters just off the encounters you have going from point A to point B, in order to feel really powerful, and most importantly for endgame stuff, you're probably going to want to grind. A lot. I guess just being a Super Saiyan doesn't cut it these days, because at post-game there's a huge difficulty spike. That part's optional of course, but if it's something that interests you, prepare to grind a lot. As you level up, you can gain skill points to allocate to each character's individual skills, letting them gain proficiency in the weapons they can wield, as well as unique skill related to that character's personality. As these level up, you'll get passive bonuses like an increase in strength while a sword is equipped, or unique abilities like Metal Slash. The only real complaint I have about this is that characters' weapons are locked, so I can't make the Gova an archer. Ah well. The skill system lets you gain points from various weapon trees, and thanks to being able to freely change equipment mid-battle, as long as you have a weapon that can use that skill, you can access any of your skills for any situation. This offers a lot of flexibility. For example, the Gov can keep a boomerang equipped for general encounters with lots of enemies, speeding up the battle, but if a particularly strong enemy shows up, I can easily swap to a more powerful weapon like a sword, better suited to inflicting more damage upon a single target. This adds an extra layer of strategy in choosing a good diverse skill set for a variety of situations, knowing what weapons to keep on you at any given time, and most importantly, how and when to use them. At any time in the overworld, You can talk to your party and get a refresher on what you need to do next, which is especially useful coming back to the game after taking a break, or just to get some commentary on the current situation. This is great as it helps show the characters' various personalities as well as the way they interact with one another within the group, and also sometimes it's just good for a laugh. One other rather notable thing the game has is an alchemy system, which is unlocked fairly early on and can be done while in the overworld. This is kind of like the common crafting systems of many modern games, allowing you to take 2 or 3 items and combine them into something else. You can find recipes and books in the overworld, talking to NPCs, or even just through experimentation. And this is how you'll generally get better equipment, by taking more common stuff from the stores and combining it with other things you find. This encourages us all to follow the RPG trope of hoard everything. This starting bandana? Save it. This milk I found in a barrel that's probably been expired for years? Save it. This little iron nail? Ooh, you better believe you need to save it. There are so many recipes to discover, and a huge number of items can be used in at least one recipe. It's worth it to try and save as much stuff as possible. Aside from the main plot, there are, as always, some fun side quests. These include hunting for mini medals to exchange for awesome prizes, gambling in the casinos, and my personal favorite, the Monster Arena. In fact, it's so good they made a side series based off of it. Eventually you will find Mori, an eccentric guy who runs the Monster Arena. He tasks you with fighting your way up through the ranks and becoming a champion. You must travel the world searching far and wide for monsters that are particularly strong. You'll know them because they actually show up in the overworld instead of being random encounters. Then you must best them in battle. If you do, and have actually progressed far enough to start this side quest, you can recruit them to your team. Once you've assembled a team, you return to the Monster Arena and have your team face off in an endurance match of 3 rounds. They won't get healed in between, and most importantly, you don't get to control their actions. The AI will select all their moves. If you've ever played the Battle Palace from Pokemon Emerald, it's like that, except they usually do actually battle, so it's a lot less painful. It's actually surprisingly fun to just sit back and watch your team duke it out. At higher ranks, it will be aggravating to see them target the wrong monster or use the wrong move and cause a loss, but for the most part, it's a good time. Doing this can earn you a variety of perks for the main game too, like better gear, alchemy ingredients, and my personal favorite, the ability to call your team to assist you outside of the arena. Boss giving you trouble? Bam! Monsters in your face. Yeah! Who needs to be strong when you can have monsters do the dirty work for you? Huh. It's really just Pokemon. There is one thing I forgot to mention. This game is rated T for teen, so there is some stuff here that may not be suitable for younger kids. That is to say, you get a lot of alcohol, some gambling, and tons of NPCs dressed up as scantily clad bunny girls. Yup, just bear that in mind. Oh, also you can dress Jessica up in a bunny girl outfit. Have fun! It never gets too wild, but I thought it was something worth pointing out. Alright, that covers the majority of the in-game aspects, so let's take a look at the game as a whole. Verdict. Dragon Quest VIII is a fairly simple RPG, which has some unique twists and surprises that keep things fresh and interesting. Things like the tension system, alchemy, and the monster arena break up the standard formula. It's a great example of how being simple isn't a bad thing. While the plot isn't the most groundbreaking and the characters could use a little more development, it's still totally enjoyable for what it is. Further, unraveling the mysteries of the plot keeps the player engaged, and the gorgeous presentation helped to make it a great experience. Overall, it's still a great game all these years later, and I definitely recommend it. Whether you're a longtime fan of RPGs or a newbie looking for an easy point of entry, Dragon Quest VIII is a great time. I mean, I own a PlayStation 2 just to play it, so if that doesn't count for something, I'm not quite sure what does. And thus ends my brief love affair with PlayStation. Nintendo, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it! Take me back, please! Dude, they just put this game on 3DS. What?
I don't want this anymore. It's on Nintendo 3DS. It's a better thing than the PS2. I don't want it anymore, actually. I want the game though. That's a good game.